Good evening. It is the 18th day of December, 2023. It's hard to believe that we are now past the halfway point in this month, and it has been a very full year. And that's why I'm particularly excited about this broadcast, because we're going to take some time to look back over the accomplishments that we've made this year. And I hope that it will, for you, like it has for me, given me a lot of hope for next year. All that on tonight's Hamilton Report. Well, before I bring on our guest tonight, I just wanted to say a word about the First Lady. It's always been the First Lady's job to prepare the White House for Christmas. And she released a video last week of a very, very entertaining Nutcracker interpretation at the White House. It involves a wonderful group of dancers, tap dancers primarily, and it's an all-inclusive dance troupe. So if you haven't seen it, I hope that you'll check it out, because it is driving the right out of their gourds, which makes it an even better Christmas present. But I wanted to give you just a glimpse of the before and after of the work that, under Dr. Biden's guidance, transformed the White House for this holiday season. I just want to point out that all of the decorations in the White House for Christmas, for the holidays, were all done by volunteers. So take a look at this. Well, I think you can see that it was very hope-filled. It was very family-friendly, and kind of gives one a sense of being a child again this time of year walking through. So I just wanted to say that we appreciate the very good taste of our First Lady, and we appreciate all that she does standing beside our president. Well, now it's time to introduce not my guest, my boss, actually, my colleague, my friend, someone that I work with every day of the week, and someone who pays particular attention to everything that's going on for Democrats around the state of Oklahoma. Alicia Andrews. Alicia, welcome back to the show. I'm always excited to bring you onto the Hamilton Report.
I'm glad to be here, Scott.
Well, I was just saying before I brought you on that when we look back and just take a moment to reflect, it's been a good year for the Oklahoma Democratic Party. I think sometimes we're guilty of the same thing that the cobbler had when his children had no shoes. He was busy taking care of everyone else, and we don't take enough time, I think, to reflect on all that all the good that we accomplish. And I say we, meaning every Democrat around the state. What are some of the highlights this year for you?
Well, first and foremost was our reorganization convention in June. More than just electing our statewide officers, and that's usually what we use it for, is electing our statewide officers and updating our Constitution and bylaws. This year, it was the biggest convention that we've had in recent memory, and that we brought folks from all over the country to come in and change and share best practices. We allowed our federations to get involved and bring folks who are of a particular interest to their constituency groups. We had a vice president of the DNC, the president of the ASDC, Ken Martin, the the chairman of the Minnesota DFL came and spoke at our convention, and we had Beto O'Rourke, come and speak at our Carl Albert event. And so I was very proud of all we were able to do that day and how many people came and participated. So if you ask me what's the big thing, that's the big thing, because we were able to train a lot of Democrats.
And I have to throw this into one of the things that I'm most proud of, besides it being a great convention, is that it was paid for by the time we got there. We worked, I mean, so many people worked hard to make sure that we had the funds necessary to do all the things that you were talking about. We have a kind of a montage of things that we did that weekend. Let's take a look at that now. I've seen that so many times, but it struck me a little differently this time. As I was looking at both the presenters, the panelists, and mainly the attendees, it looked like Oklahoma. It was not a monolith. There were lots of folks representing a lot of different communities and cultures. And I love being able to show that it's more than just talk on our part. We really do embrace so many different ideas, as long as they're all wrapped together and move us forward.
I haven't seen it as many times as you have, but every time I see it, I remember a different moment in that weekend. And so that was great to see.
It was, and it was really, it was an extraordinary experience hearing Beto and obviously Ken Martin, who I think is one of the great leaders in the Democratic Party. But I was also very pleased to have had the chance to just sit and visit with folks outside or in the lobby. And people were just stunned. One woman came up to me and she said, "This is a convention." She said, "I go to 3 professional conventions a year, and this is a professional convention." So that was really gratifying to hear. And frankly, I'm glad we don't have to do it again right away, but it'll be on us before we know it.
I'm grateful for all the people who contributed and made it what it was.
It really, really was special. Before we talk about more from the state party, one of the things that I'm really proud of this year is the way our county parties rallied. Part of it, I think, is that they recognized the need that everyone had coming out of COVID. We had all been locked up and separated from one another. And although that changed last year, it wasn't until this year, I think, that people really said, okay, I need to get back out there. And county parties have done a terrific job in gathering people in their communities, from everything from local municipal elections to just having fun together. And
well, what about the fact that a lot of county parties have reconstituted that had gone dormant? And
yes.
So now a lot of county parties are starting back, and that's exciting because there are pockets of Democrats who weren't being served who are now being served.
They are. And because the counties are working together with all the folks in their communities, we're seeing more candidates come from rural Oklahoma, particularly. And that's what we've been working toward for a very long time. and they have taken the challenge, and I am just thrilled with the things that they've been doing. We've talked a lot about Enid and the way that they came together to rally against a Nazi in their city council, but that's the one that it gets the bright headlights. But I'll tell you,
also Lawton. There's also Lawton. Though
yes.
Larry Bush didn't make it across the finish line, he moved the needle by 9 points. He gave the state of Oklahoma hope, because there were people from all over the state that were getting in their cars and driving across the state to be in Lawton to help Larry. There were people all over the state working phone banks. And that gave me so much hope to see that Oklahomans were committed to this race.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And when you say close the gap by 9 points, we should mention that was predicted to be an R20, which means that a Republican would win by 20% of the votes. And he shrunk that by half. So that's a huge plus. And I love the fact that, he was not sour grapes about it. He recognized all the folks that gave him such momentum there. And I think it's encouraging to other communities as well. I was in Okmulgee last month, and the number of people that turned out on just a regular meeting night was so interesting. And I was also proud to see so many veterans in attendance there. And they're talking about creating an Eastern Oklahoma veterans group, which we need more for our federations. So I'm happy with all of the work that our county parties are doing. And we've spent a good amount of time this year looking at particular rural counties, because those are the ones that too often I don't think get the recognition that they deserve. So we've been intentional this year about recognizing them and their leadership, because if you have a full-time job and you're a county leader, that's a real commitment. But these folks have taken the commitment quite seriously, and it seems like they're having fun along the way. And that's one of the things that we have to do as Democrats, is remember that we can have fun as we work together.
And I'm particularly proud of the county parties that you went to visit and the county parties that I went to visit, because we've got to close the gap. We have to make sure that all of our county parties, be it Bryan County or Okmulgee, as you mentioned, or Grady County, feel like they're part of the system, because that's what's going to take to move us, to keep this momentum going and move us towards breaking the stranglehold that the Republican Party has on our state.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I think that one of the things that was most visible to folks was our Road Trip to Victory tour. And that's one of the things that I'm particularly proud of, because we got a chance to just sit down with folks and listen and visit and exchange ideas. And I was really happy that we had counties that were a little put up by the fact that we didn't make it to theirs. But there's obviously no way we could hit every county in less than a month, and that would be a little too long in a motorhome. But the counties that we did visit were so gracious and welcoming. And when we were in Durant, I have to tell you, that was the biggest surprise of all, because you hear things and you read things, and it was like, okay, we may get there, and there may be only 6 people. Alicia, were there like 60 people in the room that night for dinner?
That's what it felt like. I didn't do a count, but yes, it was one of the more crowded spaces. The timing, I don't think, could have been better, because it was timed with a parade, and folks were all downtown, and it was a great gathering. And a thing that should be noted about that is that was a county that was in the process of rebuilding. They had gone dormant, and they're in the process of rebuilding, and they were able to fill a breakout room in a hotel. in a restaurant. There were people, there were college students, and there were seniors, and there were retired people. So there were all kinds of folks, and folks who were just curious about the Democratic Party. It was a wonderful stop, like a lot of the stops that we went.
Yeah, everyone was unique, and we got to visit with some great folks and eat some good food along the way. We have a video clip of that trip. Let's take a look at it now. it just makes me smile all over again. It was so much fun. And the one thing that you said in every single town where we stopped, you said, we're not just doing this one time. We're not just stopping in and then going away. And I have been thrilled with the way that people have taken us up on that promise, and they've been inviting us to more things. They've been sharing more of their own activities with us, so we can share that with the broader state. So it was a lot of fun, other than nearly freezing to death one night. But it was great fun, and I hope that we're able to do something like that again.
I want to give a shout out as I watch this. I think it's important to give a shout out to Representatives John Waldron and Andy Fugate, who showed up and coordinated, bridge the gap between the state party and our elected officials. They showed up so that counties that don't normally get to see an elected official, was in their town, and they got to brush shoulders with our elected officials, and that was great. So thank you, Representative Fugate. Thank you, Representative John Waldron. And for all the county chairs and district officers who traveled the state with us, or who showed up and surprised us in places that weren't their county because they wanted to support. I want to say thank you for that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of elected officials, let's talk about, they've been quite visible this year, wouldn't you say?
Yes, one of my challenges with our elected officials in my time of being involved is that I felt like in the past we didn't see them very much. But this year that changed. They're much more active in social media. They're much more active on the news and putting out press releases so that people can see. I've always known, and you've always known, Scott, how hard they work, and that they're focused on the issues, and they're focused on advocating for Oklahomans. But to see it in the press releases and to see it at the press conferences and on their social media, I think spreads the word to folks who aren't as involved as we are. And so I'm very proud of our elected officials, and it was great to see them out in this last legislative session.
We'll take a look at this. Oklahoma has a lot of work to shed the stigma of Dem or progressive in the state, especially for younger voters. Will Dems and independents be working to galvanize young voters and invigorate older voters? I can answer that very quickly. Absolutely. But you can elaborate on that question.
Well, I will say it's been a minute, but we have a very active Young Democrats federation in this cycle. They've been traveling all over the state, making themselves visible. I have a relationship with the president of Young Dems, where when there's something going on with young folks, or young folks that she's in contact with, feel like the Democratic Party is missing it, she lets us know so that we can take actions to make sure that we are in concert. In this last 12 months, I have been involved in conversations that I never thought I would have been involved with as the chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party. I got to participate in a trip, kind of a diplomatic trip to Taiwan, to hear the Taiwan's people's their love for their democracy and the threat that China is imposing. I've been invited to participate in conversations with the German embassy because they wanted to know what Oklahoma voters are thinking about and how to engage with diverse voters. I was invited to speak to the Burmese consulate about the issues that they face. And most recently, I was invited to a conversation with some Palestinian Americans so that because they wanted the Democratic Party to hear their plight, to hear what they're thinking, so that we knew and we weren't just paying attention to the news and slanted or biased media. And so to answer the question, Nikki, yes, we are trying to galvanize voters of all stripes, and we're trying to engage and make sure that voters are aware that we hear them, that we care, and that we are making strides to improve the lives of all Oklahomans.
You know, we were talking a moment ago about elected officials, and then you brought in Young Dems. Well, we also have a very strong college Dems group now, and strong leadership, and I love seeing that. But I think one of the things that stands out for me is that we have the state party, we have our county parties, we have the legislators, we have young folks, we have our federations, but it feels like, no, I'm just going to say it truly is happening where we are all coming together as one Democratic Party, and that's something that we have. That's a prize, and we have to really treasure that.
As one Democratic Party, and as a party who does not police the work of other organizations, of allied organizations, we don't have the power to stop other allied organizations. And our focus is on electing Democrats, adding balance to our legislature, and bringing back, I don't know, just sanity back into our state legislature.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I think stands out for me is the sane approach that our elected officials, I'm talking about Democrats, have injected into the conversations. They were strongly opposed to the whole school voucher scheme. It finally made its way in, and now people are looking at what they said would happen, and they're going, yeah, it really did happen just like that. We really didn't get what we were promised. So that kind of logic, that kind of care, I believe that people are starting to see that. And I think it's a huge plus, because when we all work together, we can stand together, and that forms a mountain for us to continue working. And one of the things that I've noticed, of course, you've been literally recruiting since the last election. I mean, the very next day, you were talking to folks about running for office next year.
Right.
But I have to tell you, I don't remember a time when we've had so many well-qualified candidates announcing so early. It has been really terrific seeing folks all over the state announcing their candidacy for school boards, county elections, as well as the House and Senate of the state. So that's got to feel good for you to see that your work is paying off with candidates coming forward.
It does. It does. But you're being so serious. I want to talk about Killers of the Flower Moon. You haven't mentioned that at all.
I was going to get to that, but yeah, let's talk about that.
So we a member of staff had a wonderful idea of, why don't we have a private screening? Give an opportunity for Democrats to get together, have a good time, and watch a private movie. And we oversold how much we thought we were going to sell, and just the number of Democrats who were in the room to watch an over 3-hour movie. It was absolutely wonderful. And we benefited and are grateful that former Chief Jim Gray and Henry Gray joined us and gave us their perspective as direct descendants of the Reign of Terror. It was a good time. It was a heavy movie, but it was part of Oklahoma history that more of us need to learn about.
Yeah, it was a very powerful movie. But hearing Chief Gray speak and learning about how his son was named, and to have his son with us as well, it was a very important event, because one, like you said, it was just a time for us to come together and do something fun and enjoying ourselves. And we accomplished that in spades. People were still talking about it weeks later, and not just the movie, but the fact that we all got to watch it together. So we're getting some comments here that we don't support the Native Americans in our state, and I completely disagree with that. We've got good relationships with our folks, and you have been consistent in calling out the governor every time he picks a fight. So I'm not going to put the quotes up. People can see them online if they want, because this is a positive experience, and we're really trying to involve everyone and incorporate everyone, which frankly, that's a problem that the Republicans don't have, because they just tell people what to think and how to vote, and they all line up behind them. Whereas
I want to add something.
Okay.
I will tell you that I am hopeful when I see people who have no idea what they're talking about getting involved in party politic conversations and political conversations, because what that means is that they do kind of care, and they
Yeah.
do want to learn, and what we have to do is keep showing up in the spaces. We have to keep showing up and standing up for what we stand for. So when someone works their way in, to try to discredit us, what I say is, I'm glad they found us.
Yeah.
I'm glad they found us. And once they find us, and if they decide to pay attention, they will see that, I don't talk about things that I don't stand for, and I stand for what I talk about. And that is what the Oklahoma Democratic Party is. We don't make promises that aren't us. We do what we can do. And I welcome everyone into the conversation. A person in the comments asked if we're open to working with independents. Here's the reality. We are the Oklahoma Democratic Party. We are the only party in the state who's opened our primaries, and every recognized parties have the opportunity to open their primaries to unaffiliated voters. The Democratic Party consistently is the only party that opens up our primaries to allow unaffiliated voters to vote in our primaries. And so when the question is asked, are we open to working with independents? My motto is I want everybody to have access to the ballot box, be educated when they get there, and know that their vote's going to count, regardless of their voters registration. And so do I want independents to vote? Absolutely. Are our primaries open to independents? Absolutely. And that's not something that just happens. I have to overtly write a memo and make sure it gets to the election board.
And that's after the convention votes on that.
That was that our body, our convention body has to vote on it. And so it's not something that happens passively. It is something that is deliberate. And it's something that we as a party are proud of.
Let's talk a little bit. We've talked about recruitment, but let's talk about some of the things that we are working on now to move us from 23 into 24 that will be very helpful to our candidates.
We are currently in this moment looking to add to staff, right? We have an open position for a field organizer so that we can help some of our candidates as they run. And so we've actively recruited for at least the last year. And we've extended our recruitment down into the municipal level, not just mayor, but city councils and school boards and county assessors. We've expanded our recruitment. So we've actually been recruiting. We're adding to staff so that we're able to better assist candidates who find themselves either not represented or underrepresented by professionals. We are planning one of our bigger campaign academies coming up in April. So we are getting more involved in recruiting candidates and supporting them after they've committed to put their name on the ballot.
And we're working on a candidate resource guide that will be very helpful for particularly candidates who may not be able to afford, a big staff in their efforts. So I'm thrilled with not just the quality of the candidates that we're seeing, but the fact that we're going to have something for them. You mentioned our campaign academy, which is early next year. And you are probably the best idea person that I've ever worked with, because you have great ideas. And one of the things that you mentioned, obviously you've been thinking about it, but you just mentioned it kind of offhandedly. And I thought it was a brilliant idea when you talked about the campaign candidate closet. And to talk a little bit about what we're doing for Campaign Academy there.
One of the elements of Campaign Academy that will be on April 13th is that we're incorporating what we're calling Candidates Closet, where we're going to be asking folks to donate candidate-worthy outfits that we can then donate out to candidates, because running for office is expensive and it's a lot of hard work. And what we're trying to do is provide opportunities for candidates to add to their wardrobe, because they have to show up at many events, add to their wardrobe without adding expense to their lives. And so I'm very excited about Candidates Closet, and we'll flesh that out a little bit more as we get closer. But we have so many things that we're planning in the meantime. And so I do want to mention, because I do know that we're already out of time, but I do want to mention a panel, a group of panels that we're doing tomorrow. Last week, the governor doubled down on his defunding of diversity, equity, and inclusion offices in higher education. Basically, he's saying if you have a DEI department at your university, we're not going to pay for it, because without that, we're somehow going to be able to make sure that we're including everyone. When we all know the best way to make sure we're including everyone is to track it and make sure that that happens. And so the governor has declared that he's going to defund it. We've invited, for part of our panel, we've invited a bunch of legislators to talk about, first, what they know about the governor's bill, and two, what are they, as a bunch of white guys, losing as a result of diversity, equity, inclusion? And what do they plan to do in the next legislative cycle to combat what the governor's doing? And in the second half of that panel, we will have some DEI professionals who work in the field come and talk about how DEI actually improves economic outcomes. When states have robust DEI policies, it improves their economic outcomes. So we are entering into the conversation. We are entering into the conversation because we cannot let this Republican governor get away with the nonsense he's trying to get away with.
And we should let people know it's tomorrow evening, same place you're watching this broadcast. It's tomorrow evening at 6:30. And I'm really looking forward to it because this is something I'm passionate about. And I have received more pushback from Twitter on supporting DEI than I think anything else that I've done. And that's okay, because people feel strongly about it one way or another. Our job, I think, is to really explain the importance and to demonstrate how, if for us to have well-funded public education, affordable quality health care, no matter where you live in the state, and economic opportunities, every single one of those has a DEI component: diversity, inclusiveness, and just dropped the E.
Equity.
Thank you. Oh, it just disappeared. So it should be a great panel, and I hope that you all will tune in. We'll be taking questions from the audience, and so that's tomorrow evening. But Alicia, I tell you, we should mention that this work, nothing comes for free. Nothing comes for free. And just about all the money that we spend is because of people who generously support us. And when I say generously, I'm talking about everything from high dollar donors to those who just contribute every month, whatever they can, because those are the folks that understand what we do is so important. And I'm just going to make this year-end pitch that if you are not a monthly donor, we hope that you will be. You can go to okdemocrats.org/donate. And if it's a one-time gift, we are grateful for that. If it's every month, regardless of the amount, we're grateful for that, because we do need support so that we can support our candidates and continue to move things forward. As we wrap up this year, anything else that you'd like to point out that has happened, or something that you're particularly proud of or happy with?
There's so many things, but I'm going to take this opportunity to do a wrap up as well. Okay. It is not too late. It is never too late to get involved, to join your county party. And if we are not talking about, and I'm aiming this at Brittany, if we're not talking about the things that you want us to talk about, the way you get us to talk about the things you want us to talk about is to show up and contribute to the conversation. because it's all about representation. As Cody McCauley, who's running for Congressional District 4, said, we don't all have to agree, because we don't. We don't all have to agree. But the only way that we're going to make sure that every voice is included and make sure that everybody feels represented is for folks to show up and nudge us in the direction of the things that interest them. Show up. If we're not talking enough about the things that you care about, come start the conversation. Come join the conversation. Come make sure that we're talking about the things that you care about, because that's how it happens. That's how I got involved. We weren't doing enough about the thing that I cared about, and I showed up. And I kept showing up until we were talking about the things that I care about. And that's how it works. I came out of nowhere and just kept pushing my issue. And now we're talking about the things that I care about. And that's all it takes. Show up to your county party. Get them to talk about the things that you care about. Get them to show up at the marches, the parades, the meetings that are important to the issues that you care about, because that's what it's going to take. And that's what we have to do. It takes all of us to solve these problems.
And I love what Nikki says here. It's not enough to point out a problem. Come with some solutions or ideas, because that's what it takes. I mean, we good ideas can come from anywhere. And we see that so often in our work, that a great idea can come from a volunteer or a staff member or just a Democrat who picks up the phone and gives us a call. We don't ever turn anyone away. And that means on the phone or in person or at an event. And that makes me proud too. Well, Alicia, I just want to say personally, it's been an honor to work with you again this year. And every year about this time, I become more excited about the next year. And I can truly say that I think that next year is going to be a tremendously, not just important year, but an opportunity year, an opportunity for us to get more folks involved, an opportunity to elect more Democrats at every turn. And I believe that we have already begun the momentum that it's going to take to put us there. I know that you've been very, very busy. And so to extend your day by this much time, I'm grateful. And I know that our folks at home are. I want to mention that this is the last broadcast of the Hamilton Report for 2023. And I hope that we're going to be back next year. It's really a matter of is there still an interest in this broadcast? Is there still a need for it? I certainly enjoy spending time with you every Monday evening at 6:30, but it's going to be up to you. If you'll let us know if you think we should continue or take a pause for a few months, or just wrap it in a bow and call it a day. Whatever you decide is how we'll proceed. But this is our last broadcast for the year. I want to thank Alicia Andrews again. I want to mention our amazing officers. Besides Alicia, our vice chair, Cody, is just a great thinker, and he's working with Governor Walters, who is our DNC committee man, on raising money and bringing fresh ideas. Nana Dankwa, our secretary, does a great job in keeping things orderly. And I also really want to underscore the work of Rachel Hunsucker, our treasurer, because she has a very full-time job and a big commitment with the party, and I appreciate her. And then there's Kaylin Free, who never stops thinking about Oklahoma Democrats or how she can help make the party better. So as we leave tonight, I just want to say thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for being with us this year. Were it not for you, I wouldn't be here. None of us would. But you are here. We are here, and we're working together. So I look forward to seeing you in the new year. I look forward to a new year because I think that the brightest days for us really are ahead. So as we go out tonight, let's just take a moment and feel the holidays. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. On behalf of all of us at the Oklahoma Democratic Party, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, wishing you a very happy holiday season and a terrific start to 2024.